Who is the typical soundbar buyer? I would venture to guess they fall into just a few categories. Someone with limited space for a dedicated home theater, possibly a smaller room or an apartment where you want an increase in fidelity, but you also don't want your neighbors banging on the wall. There's also people looking to simply improve the dialogue channel coming from their TV. Mini TVs do a really poor job of sound, and it's not really surprised that a flat panel doesn't exactly have great speakers. I can't say I see many flat floor standing speakers that are being sold on the market these days. And finally, the people who are home theater enthusiasts, they already have the dedicated system, all that kind of stuff, and they're accustomed to that great sound in their dedicated space, but simply can't put a home theater in every room of their house. Enter the soundbar, where you don't get everything, but you certainly see leaps and bounds in performance over the internal speakers for your extra spaces like side rooms, bedrooms, and once you get used to good sound, it's really hard to go back to, well, poor quality internal TV speakers. I fall into the third category, and while I would certainly put a home theater in every room of the house if it was possible, it's just not feasible, and the market must demonstrate that as well, because when I go into my local Best Buy, Target, stores like that, for example, it's 90% soundbars. There's usually a few dedicated home theater things, like some AVRs, a few speakers, but just not a big selection. The average consumer wants simple, and while I wish they would look into more dedicated systems, as it can be very rewarding, it's in general more expensive, complicated, and just takes up more space than many have available. So while I do this review today, remember that I'm reviewing this as a soundbar. I'm not reviewing this against a dedicated home theater where a single speaker costs more than this entire setup in many cases. This is the Yamaha TrueX Bar 50A. Sort of a mouthful of a name, isn't it? It's a soundbar and wireless subwoofer combo that can deliver 2.1.2, meaning you get stereo right and left on the far ends of the speaker to attempt to increase the width of your soundstage. The point one being your wireless subwoofer, and we'll dig into that one in a little bit. Then you get two additional upfiring drivers, and that brings you your Dolby Atmos abilities. There are actually two additional 3-inch subdrivers facing directly up, as this can be purchased without the sub, so this would be your bass drivers in a sub-free configuration. And if you look on the far ends, you can see a couple ports for those subs as well. The soundbar itself is powered with 3 amps totaling 180 watts, and the sub has its own 100-watt amplifier as well. I get it, cutting expenses is hard, and I feel like we're being nickeled and dimed on price increases every 6 months through the vast amount of subscriptions we use these days. I went through my TV streaming services recently, which I fully admit I'm a member of too many of, but it becomes a game of, oh, I watched that one show, or the kids use that one, so I guess scratch that. And music services, they're not going anywhere, so really, I guess what I want is to save money without, well, sacrificing anything. This is why I'm so intrigued by Mint Mobile, who this video is in partnership with. They offer premium wireless for $15 a month, and if you've priced out wireless plans lately, that's really good. I can get high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. I can even bring my own phone along with my current phone number and existing contacts. I'm really sacrificing nothing with this change. I've used Mint Mobile and didn't notice any drop in coverage compared to other large network carriers. I also didn't notice any drop in performance streaming videos on YouTube, for example. Big Wireless doesn't want you to know it, but switching to Mint is super easy, thanks to digital eSIM cards, which most phones now have. You can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your own home. If your phone doesn't have an eSIM, Mint will ship you a new SIM card for free. So if you want to save a little money without the sacrifice, go to trymintmobile.com/Kuykendall, also linked in my description, to get premium wireless for just $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. Now let's get back to the video. I didn't get the optional 2 surround speakers for this testing, unfortunately. It's a separate product called the TrueX Speaker 1A. These can connect wirelessly to the bar and provide more of an enhanced surround sound experience. They also have the ability to disconnect from the soundbar and operate on their own as a Bluetooth speaker in a pair or separate if you want to take them something like outside, anything like that, for probably more for like background listening. I think that configuration is pretty cool, but you need to remember these additional units are battery operated with around 12 hours of battery life. So either spend the money on the docks and basically lose that wireless appeal, or accept that you're going to be charging these quite often. Taking a look at the unit itself, it's more of a simple look than something that stands out, with some rounded edges and a fabric wrap that covers the front and top, and there's some simple touches like this silver power key. It's certainly not something that's going to stick out in a room, and that's ideal in my opinion. If this had chrome speaker grills and blinding lights, we'd probably be having a completely different conversation today. The top has controls for power, source, you-know-who, a mic button to mute you-know-who for privacy, and volume controls. The center has a light notification for you-know-who, and you get your usual notifications of alerts, things like that. It blinks yellow if there's a message waiting for you. It lights up blue if it's waiting for a command, all that kind of stuff. The bottom has your modes, which can be a bit of a light show. Shows everything you have going on, but you either need to, get up close to read that or maybe memorize it over time. Next is the sub. It's actually more attractive looking than many of the soundbar subs. Now we're really digging deep, calling soundbar subs attractive, but at least they did give this one some extra attention. It's a decently solid feeling construction and has this cloth covered grille, what gives it a little bit of life over a simple rectangle sitting on your floor. Like I mentioned earlier, it's supported by its own 100-watt amplifier and has a 6 1/4 inch sub capable of reaching 35 Hz. The sub sounds pretty good here. It's well controlled and actually does add depth to the sound rather than just some of the soundbar subs that almost just create a meaningless boom. I would have a preference in something that could reach a little bit lower in the frequency chart, but it does well for what it is, and it fits into compact spaces really well being this thin design. As for placement, this one does cross over with the soundbar around 100 Hz, so while bass is less directional in placement, it can still be noticeable to a point if you try to hide this away in less than standard locations. I would generally keep it somewhat close to the soundbar for best performance, corner load it for a little extra room gain if needed. Inputs are about as simple as it gets: power, Ethernet, or Wi-Fi, a USB for system updates, and 2 HDMI ports. One HDMI is equipped with eARC, and the second is a pass-through. So think something like a Blu-ray player or a gaming console. A special note there, some of the next-gen features won't pass through as this is capped at 4K 60 Hz. So Blu-ray players and casual gamers, they're going to be just fine. Just take note if you're a gamer looking for top-tier refresh rates. Finally, there's an optical if your TV doesn't support HDMI or possibly is incompatible with the standard. The soundbar comes with an optical cable, which is a bit odd in my opinion. I guess I would think that the vast majority of people are going to be using HDMI here, and that cable isn't included. I would say either include both or just the HDMI. Setting this one up is very simple. Plug it into power, HDMI to the TV, utilizing that ARC port, and simply place the sub in your desired location and plug it in. Everything automatically detected. Additional setup options would include downloading the app and completing a firmware update. It's not really needed as basically everything can be controlled by the soundbar remote. But most people likely plan to use the eARC and just use the TV remote. They might just put the included remote away and just bring up the app on their phone as needed for anything beyond what you can do over eARC. What I like about the app is that it gives you a little bit of a clearer picture as far as feedback goes on what you're doing in comparison to just knowing what light does what on the front. It's not going to be easy to see that unless you get up close and take a look. There's sort of a lot going on there as far as tiny lights and, well, tiny text. That might just be the way to go, as it's super simple, it's well thought out, and it's, selecting between everything is just a click away essentially if you can't do it on your just standard TV remote. The other reason you may gravitate to the app is music playback. This one does a pretty good job on its services. We get Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, and Amazon Music. Apple users will need to stream using AirPlay 2. There's Bluetooth, SBC, and AAC codecs available as well. I was really surprised with the music streaming capabilities. It's a good selection, and they covered the two services I primarily use, Amazon Music and Tidal. And Amazon Music was a really big surprise because that's the one that's missed on a lot of products, and this one actually has a direct integration, which is pretty cool. As far as the sound performance, this one is going to rely on more of a phantom center arrangement, as there is no dedicated center channel driver. Surprisingly, it still does really well here, with the caveat that I think the sound benefits from the clear voice option turned on, and even the extra bass extension mode as well. Dialogue, which I would have expected to take the back seat in a phantom center config, actually ended up being one of the soundbar's shining features. I think they possibly did some tuning here to enhance this area, as there is no EQ or manual adjustments available. What you hear is what you get, but I think it works in this case well. It's very clear, maybe slightly exaggerated, but it brings a bigger sense of space and directionality than you would expect from a small package like this. You will notice you have some options when it comes to the sound modes. There's stereo, which is going to be your 2-channel feel. Standard, and that's going to be more of a newscaster sound. That'll have an exaggerated focus on voices. Movie, which was my pick for TV, movies, and music. It seems to have the largest presentation, and I would honestly just leave it there. And finally, there's a game mode, and this seems to be more of a direct sound, likely an attempt to offer up an advantage on some of the online gaming, bringing in a feel of a little bit more, extra details. The Atmos functions are up to my expectations with its driver size and my somewhat difficult room design, high and slanted ceilings. It doesn't have the same feel as if you had dedicated Atmos in the room, but it does still give you that sort of encompassing sound that you want to get from an Atmos soundbar. It does a pretty good job for what it is with its driver size. If you put this in the appropriate size space, you're going to get something pretty immersive for the person looking for an integration like this. It's not going to beat out a true home theater, like I said, of separate components, but for one, this isn't really meant to. It's meant to fill the needs for the users, and unfortunately, not everyone has the space for a dedicated home theater equipment. I wish everyone did, but it's just not realistic. So for the pros on this one, it does really well at low volume levels, and I was kind of surprised how well it did at loud listening. The speakers and sub managed to provide an engaging listen at low levels, but also stayed composed as I brought the volume up pretty loud. The sound is really good for what it is. It's a small soundbar utilizing tuning and multiple drivers to create a more immersive space than what any standard TV speakers could offer. The dialogue on this bar is pretty clean and would be a good pick for someone looking for exactly that. A lot of users are not giant home theater people and are actually just looking for something that doesn't leave them wondering what people are saying on TV. This one does it well, especially with the clear voice feature enabled. The cons on this one are pretty simple. The sub has good sound for what it is. It's a 6 1/4 inch sub, but it just can't reach that low. It'd be fine for apartments and smaller spaces, but I'm just sort of spoiled with giant subs and thousands of watts, so I generally look for a little more reach here. There's also no room tuning available or manual EQ, basically just a sub volume setting. It's a con in some ways, but it's also as simple as it gets for an easy and giant sound upgrade over your built-in TV speakers. Room tuning abilities usually offer a little more of an immersive sound after tuning it for your space though, so that could have been an advantage here if it would have been offered. I didn't get to test the wireless rear surrounds, but when you add these into the price, it starts to run into a lot of competition. Right now, I think this one is priced really fair and should be highly considered at this price point. End of the day, I was pretty happy with the performance in this soundbar. When I personally think of soundbars, I'm thinking TV speaker replacement first, like those gotta go. Then I fine-tune my search for the level of fidelity and features that fit where I'm going to be using this. To clarify that, as much as we would all like that home theater in every room, sometimes we just need something simple that improves the dialogue, as well as the all-around sound delivery, and this does exactly that. Clean, clear, fun sound. There's certainly competition in this space, but right now the Yamaha is priced competitively, just a bit below some of the premium models. The price, along with its simple and seamless interface, make it a strong contender in this space. If you guys could please like, subscribe, comment, makes a huge difference to the channel. Let's interact on there, help push this video out to a wider audience. I'd truly appreciate it. I'll talk to everyone later. See ya.